Welcome to the Tukatalks show, where TUKAtech founder SAREEN talks to fellow fashion industry experts about the trending topics of today, the history of the apparel business, and the paradigm shifts that will transform the industry for the future.
Welcome to Tukatalks. I'm very fortunate to have, I call her my child. She calls me her second dad. She's been on my show a couple of times. Considering what's going on in the entire apparel industry is the biggest state of flux. I don't think ever we've seen anything like that before. And so I asked Marta Miller, who's my guest today, first to introduce yourself, and then let me ask you a few questions, okay?
I'm Marta Miller. I am the owner of Lefty Production Co in Stitch, Texas. Lefty is right here in Los Angeles, and Stitch, Texas is in Austin, where I now get to reside with my adorable husband and my 3 wonderful kids. And I've been in this industry since 2004. I still am absolutely in love with it. Ram here, I just lost my dad August 21st, and I saw him and I just teared up because he is my second father and one of my greatest mentors in my life. I'm getting emotional even saying it, but pretty much he would describe me as a Kinko's. We do anything and everything, and we really focus on, we have very large clients, and we have very small clients, and I try to treat everybody exactly the same. I've probably started about 4,000 companies and helped them with their initial design, their development, their sample making, their pattern making, their marking and grading, and ultimately their production. And I do it because nobody wanted to help me when I was in my 20s starting a brand. I'm happy to be here, and I love this team. And I'm a TUKAcenter. I've got the laser. I've got the whole thing.
So before we get into this one, I feel that we are in the state of flux. In chemistry, they say when we don't have a definition of a product, a reaction is still finding its own, it's called a state of flux. And nothing we have ever seen that we are seeing now globally. Certain things are not making sense to a lot of people, but I call this an opportunities. So Marta, if you remember, we had a similar situation where we had to pivot and think differently, and that was in 2020 during the COVID lockdown. And you had little children. I remember you leaving town just like that and going to Texas to your family and parents. In my particular case, I used to travel 200 days out of the country. I had kind of missed spending time with my children and grandchildren. So it was a blessing in disguise for me, locked up into my house, and my children, my grandchildren, and everybody who worked on the property. They were all together. It was like the biggest picnic ever, every day. Yes, that was the ray of hope, the change. And for you, there was a change. You were a city girl. You went into...
I went from 1,000 square feet to 40 acres. We totally changed up our lives without knowing it too. Sometimes life just, my mom always says, you plan, God laughs. And I think that that's a really good message for business. We can plan and think. Right now as a family, we bought our house so we could be zoned to the best middle school, and my son wants to go to a little private school. You just don't know, and you have to be open in life to the amazing surprises. And I'd say yes, we are in such a state of flux, but as an entrepreneur, I never have felt like it's been stable. I mean, that's specifically since 2020. Since 2020, the idea of stability is totally out the window. We've had supply chain issues. Now we're having a tariff situation. There's not been any sense of our ability to anchor. And I think when times are like that, all you can anchor to is yourself.
Tell me, 5 years ago, it's not that long ago when COVID shutdown was, 5 years ago, you were thriving in this business in Los Angeles, helping hundreds of designers and startups to come in and be a lighting their imagination to a new color. Did you ever think that within few months or a few years, you would have an expanded business in Austin, Texas, taking over another design company, make that into a internet-based design room in Los Angeles, catering to designers in Texas? All that was not planned, was it?
No.
Okay, so the opportunities came in. You could have had shut down and go out of business here, or take an initiative and make it happen. We call proactive and reactive. 95% of the people are reactive. When they are cornered, they look for solutions. COVID was not planned. What is happening now? None of the vendors, the supply chain, the factories globally planned. It happened in such a short time. And everybody's grappling for something or the other. I call that opportunities. I want to touch base on that today and see, where do you find the positives have come out because of tariffs? I'll share my views, but I want to hear your views.
Yeah.
From the local guys. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, if you think back to COVID, you had people on Etsy sewing masks, and we had mills in North Carolina opening night shifts. We know how to manufacture in America. We can manufacture in America. There are certain things that are better to do in America than other things, right? I don't want to do silk dresses here, but there are so many types of garments that can be done right here in America with way more flexibility. And those items we should be making here, in my opinion. I don't think everything should be done here, but I think there are certain items that absolutely should be here. And unless there is an impetus to do it and a reason to think about your supply chain different, businesses want stability. So they want to stick to their vendor. They want to stick to what they know. They want to have the same price a year later. Businesses don't thrive on change. They do thrive on change, but they don't think they thrive on change. And this is an opportunity to reimagine your supply chain. I don't think you have to ditch your supply chain, but I think it is worth exploring your supply chain and seeing if there are domestic opportunities. And it doesn't have to be black or white. It doesn't, maybe you could do 5 styles here and your bulk of your business is still overseas. But I think that if the last 5 years have taught us anything, it's taught us that being able to react is important. Being able to get inventory quickly is important. In COVID, people were making millions of dollars sewing. We were sewing gowns here together, right? We were sewing hospital gowns, and we haven't probably sewn hospital gowns in America in probably 50 years, right? So we're able to do this stuff, but our industry needs business in order to get better, to be better, and to compete.
But why does it have to be black or white?
It doesn't.
It can be a gray,
It can
which
be
seen from a different angle, could be a different one. So you're right. By taking a blanket approach, make it in America or import or whatever, I think one has to look at, like you said, what is it that I can make here? And guys like you, with all the knowledge and exposure to sources out of the country, within the country, not for the product only, but for every section of the product development, to fit development, to final approval, to production samples, or production in small quantities, large quantities. There's so many segments within the business. And most of us over the years kind of took the monkey off our back and said, let the vendor do everything. And I find that there are a lot of brands who want to come back to America, but they lost it. They lost a lot of their sample room, their sewing machine operators, their pattern makers, graders and marker makers, people who were the product development core or the IP of that business, and then they were replaced by technical designers. And we all know that tech packs never worked. It's like very hard to translate fashion on a piece of paper. It was only after the first sample arrived, the design process started to this garment, I want you to make these changes. And so it's very hard. Don't you think they should be capitalizing? I'm talking about big guys who want to come back. But how are they going to come back if they don't even have the product development area? They should attach to people like you and say, all right, you know what? I will rebuild mine, but for now, you make my patterns, you make my samples, you do this thing and so on, till I bring it. Maybe I will bring the categories, which can be easily made here. There are fabrics which can be done here.
There's so much that can be done here. And I think that you're right. I think that the way it was set up in the 80s and 90s, I think that I mean, look, we don't have the amount of pattern makers. We don't have when an industry is starved of talent because it all got sent overseas, you're like in my business, I have 2 moms and children. It's like you have to have these generations of people that are sample sewers, that understand patterns, that understand why a notch needs to be there. This is when you lose that and you're not doing it and you're not practicing it and you're not training the next generation, it's hard to have, right? So I think that in order for America to be successful, we have to have manufacturing here. And I think that us manufacturing here is extremely important.
About 9 years ago, I had made a prediction that was that the next revolution will come from manufacturing. When I said manufacturing, it wasn't what everybody's thinking about, bringing large factories here and so on. It will be a shift of paradigm. People will make smaller quantities, more margins, cut out the noise. Exactly what Elon Musk did in the automotive industry. He went direct to consumer. He said, I am responsible for designing, for developing, for manufacturing, for selling, for financing, for servicing. That's it. It's you and me. That is what we saw as a future in 2012 when we launched demand manufacturing direct to consumer. And we feel that, yes, we can go back to what we used to call the tailor shops, but now with technology. So I don't have to make like the way they were, I buy a bolt of fabric and I can convert that to 50 different ways depending on what customer wanted it. Tomorrow's customer, I'm not talking about 2030 or 2050. It is tomorrow morning, you will feel the same. Just imagine walking into a party or a gathering and another woman is wearing the same dress that you are wearing. Would that make you feel good?
No.
That brand is out of your list, right?
Well, I mean,
so no, it's not
I
just you. It's not just you. It's the individuals. We all want to look
unique,
and we all want to fit to our body. So this is the future of the industry. Sooner we get there, better it's going to be. And I think this opportunity is here. Now, categories. Construction of a product is equally important in the price that I'm going to sell it at. Am I going to put French seams on a $9 garment or I'm going to put it on the $90 garment? Am I going to do certain embellishments? This is where I think we have a lesson to learn. And 25, 30 years ago in California, and I call the design capital of the world, and help me with your views on that. There were so many junior manufacturers, designers, brands like Rampage and XOXO and Bizu Bizu and so many of them having hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of business. What was their selling quantity? 360, 480, big quantity 600. And that too is between 4, 5, 6 stores. They all used to go to the market every month with 600 to 1,500, 2,000 samples. They were actually putting out a sample or a test market for that product. Yes, it was expensive. Maybe it's a $149 garment. But if it is selling on Melrose and is sold out right away, the next set of what I call the retailers, whether it was the Nordstroms of this world or Macy's and so on, were shopping and getting the intelligence from these small boutiques who were buying these. And now they wanted to make $1,500 to $2,000 to $2,500, but at $79. And the next one were the Targets of this world to $69 for $10,000, and then $100,000. Now, what were they doing? Same styles, same looks. They were reducing. Maybe the embroidery has less number of stitches. The look is created, but the price and the volume. Same thing applies today in the fashion business. Only difference is if I make smaller quantity, charge the right price, and I don't have anybody to write 2.5 times the margin and 50% the margin. I am you and I, and we are partners. I know your body, I know your size, I know your measurement, I know your liking. I am your personalized brand. If I make you happy, you become my influencer. That thing is not that far.
Oh, not at all. It's happening, right?
I see this every day.
I see it every day. And I think that, I think just as a world, right? Like, I think we're becoming, I think people are starting to think about entrepreneurship, right? Like, people are feeling like, wait, why am I going to go to college and spend $100,000 a year to get a degree when I could start a business and I could ship from my garage? Like, I think that people are a little bit more empowered to, it's easier to start a business, right? I remember when I started my first company, I spent $25,000 on my website. Now you spend $29 a month on Shopify. Like, it is, and you can totally do it yourself so easily. The barrier to entry to starting a brand is so much smaller. And I actually think that who is going to suffer, and what I'm seeing is, I think Target is suffering. I think that the companies that can't be agile because they have stores in malls and everything, it's going to be a lot harder for them to weather this storm than it is for the mom that has a very niche product. You know, I have a client that's selling bathing suits to little girls with, you know, maybe at like a more awkward time in their life. And she is killing it. And she's doing it, you know, in her garage. She's getting her entire family engaged. And she's talking on social media. Her customer feels connected to her kids that are packing the boxes. And that is a great life for somebody. I just think that there's so much opportunity for brands like that. And I think that those brands have the advantage of selling direct to consumer. So if a garment needs to be $4 more because it has a little bit more send out and it takes a little bit more labor in America, they can handle that because it's easier to pass off that $4 to the direct consumer. Maybe they swallow 2 of it, they pass on 2. It's a lot easier than when you have, you know, you're giving sales reps money, you're giving, you know, you're selling everything at wholesale, you're giving Nordstrom a bunch of money. The layers of that become very complicated for domestic manufacturing. But the direct to consumer, the brands that can connect directly to their clients, they are the perfect candidate.
Interesting. You said this. 10 years ago, I was in a conference. I was speaking to a few retailers, very large retailers, in my consulting project. And I put some numbers together. And at that time, the direct-to-consumer, the small brands on e-commerce, were approximately 3% of the total sales. 3%. Rest everything was through stores. And everybody said the same thing. You know, they are nibbling. But those nibblings got better and better, and all of a sudden it becomes bites. And now they are taking the chunks of somebody's rear end, and now the stores are closing. Hundreds of these stores are either shutting down or shrinking down on the path to destruction. It's like a very difficult challenge. Should I hire more people to give customer service? Should I do this? But I want 2.5%, 2.5 times from my buying. There's so many people in between. In the meantime, all of a sudden, everybody is now saying, let's go e-commerce, let's go e-commerce. But you're too late to the party. The little guys are already very established. Do you know, in 2025, in the United States of America, for the new startup in the fashion business only, $1.1 billion has been invested by the investment community. Documented.
Really? Wow.
Doesn't
That's
mean that
exciting.
everybody's going to be successful, but, you know, at this conference, I met few people, and there are a lot of startups there, and they're all going with AI, and they are selling it to the investment community that they're going to be able to do with the AI, but they have zero understanding of fashion.
I mean, I see that in my
some
own...
of them will be successful.
Oh, yeah, and I see that in my own shopping patterns, right? Like I love skin. It's my other passion. And I love skin products and I like clean ingredients, and I just, you know, everybody has their thing. And right now I'm buying a skincare from a husband and wife, and it's a beef tallow cream. And I feel like I know the couple, and I feel like I want to support them. And I just think that the way that, I mean, look, I started my business before Instagram, right? There was this idea of being able to talk to your customer, directly connect. And I think what's happening is I actually think that there is a lot more hope for retailers. And I think one of the reasons that they will have more hope is because the brands can hold their ground. The brands can build a brand and say, this skirt is $289. And that's what we sold it for. Here are all of these customers that love it and are buying it at $289, and that's what you need to make. That's what you need to sell it at. And whereas before, the big retailers were saying,
that's not allowed, right?
What?
By law, that's not allowed.
Well, that the brands
price
can't.
fixing is not allowed.
Price fixing is not allowed.
By brands to tell that you have to sell at that price.
Yeah, but they're able. I know that it's not allowed, but they aren't being bullied by the big retailers that this skirt needs to be cheap enough to hit this market. And I think that's a really powerful tool that we now have. Is before the retailers were so able to say, splendid, you cannot sell a shirt for more than $68. Nobody's buying it. And now brands can say that's wrong.
I'm going to contradict here with a real case study. In 2014, one of our customers, a very high-end brand, was selling to Nordstrom. Their dresses were around $300. We put barcode, we could put tags, all about the information. The same customer who has gone in to Nordstrom, putting the garment on in their fitting room, trying the garment, liking it, the way it fits and so on their phone scans that. It shows on the internet where that garment is available. Amazon had it at 40% off, 40% less than this. It was a huge issue in between retailers and Amazon was killing everybody they would just buy 40 garments. They would not even have every size and every color and so on, but they would buy and they would kill the price, to the extent that Nordstrom and very big retailers had to start with price matching guarantee. We did exactly the same nonsense by actually serving all our IP to vendors, factories. Why? Because we were so damn lazy. We didn't want to do it. We said, all right, this is the fit for our customer. This is the specification. This is the price I'm going to sell to. So you put the price tag, you put the tag. I'm going to sell it to ABC and XYZ and ALM and so on, these retailers. You pre-pack it. And China is learning everything about my business. Now we worry about China and really has Shein and Temu's of this world. They are not doing anything illegal because we taught them and they are just selling price. Don't tell me sustainability with consumer. Consumer decides things mainly from their pocketbook. They vote on their pocketbooks. They make decisions on their pocketbook. So if you're going to make something sustainable and so on, you have to make sure you don't compromise with the price. Do it without or making it cheaper, okay? But going back to the tariff situations, there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities. We have to look at what category of products we can do that here. There are sportswear and expensive garments. If we develop it here, if we design and develop, maybe we can do test run here before we go and commit to a large quantity and wait for 90 days or 180 days for the thing to arrive. We see the reaction. If it is selling at that price, even if we don't make enough money to increase our margin, we can bring the rest of it.
Oh, if I had one thing to change with who we speak to and people's perspectives, it would be exactly that. The idea that nobody starts a coffee shop and is like, I have to be profitable the first 2 months. Nobody has that perspective. That's not even a reality, right? I think if you can get your concept here, you can test. You could say, I'm going to do a string bikini and I'm going to do 5 colorways, and I'm making 100 units. I'm not focused on my margin. I'm I'm doing it to see what works before I bring in 1,000 units. Like, that would be my number one piece of advice is we can do things here, right here. We can test things. We can try things. We can be creative. And we can do it right here in LA. Say we can't hit the price. Say it's very technical and say we can't hit the price. Totally fair. Like our company, we can still manage the production for somebody overseas, get their price down, bring it down for them. But they know that black didn't sell that well, but nude killed it. The value in that information it's not about money.
No, but it's
so
almost,
valuable.
It's almost the main factor whether you stay in business or not. Because what do you do as a small company? You bought 100, but you sold 20 on full price. Now you're putting most energy trying to sell the 80. Then you're reducing price. All the time that you're spending trying to get rid of that bad inventory for bad price. I'm not taking 100. 100 is not a problem. But when you're bringing 50,000, 30,000, because over the years, the suppliers kept saying, okay, you want me to give you lower price, you have to give me larger order. We were producing more garments than people on the planet. Not just one time, 2 times, 10. We're producing in 2019 127 billion garments for 7 billion people on this planet.
It literally
not
breaks my
even
heart.
made it all the way. Look,
I always say the most sustainable thing is to not make the garment. I have so many clients that come to me wanting cotton thread that is biodegradable, and I'm like, okay, let's do all of that, but don't make it. Don't make it. That's more sustainable. Don't make it. Make what you know is going to sell. Be confident. Confident in that.
Yeah. Step by step reduce. If you look at the biggest polluter, biggest waste is a sample room. We make so many samples and we send samples back and forth and try on this and that and so on. They all go in the garbage. Digital process reduced some of it. Going back to this making or importing, back in almost 50 years ago, we had a shortage of sewing machine operators. The sales was not a problem. I'm not going to mention the brand, but I was running that company. And we were making something for $64, making it, and selling it for about $90. And the same thing was selling for about $249 at the retail. It didn't make a difference. I went all around both countries, Canada and USA, found every contractor because my sales were so many, but I didn't have enough capacities in manufacturing. Even after farming out to all these contractors, I still had so much production to do. So first thing I did was I went to Korea, opened up a factory. I'm not going to mention the names, but very large company. First factory I opened up with them. And my landed duty paid cost of the same product was $19. From $60 to $19, but we were still selling for $90. They were still selling for $249. My point is, some things are necessary. I want to open up a factory in Baltimore, but I don't have sewing machine operators there. I don't have any infrastructure there. I want to do something in a cheap labor country and so on, even cheap labor state. My oxygen in this business is the sewing machine operator. Without them, I can't do anything. But a lot of people don't understand the sewing machine operators are not just third class or second class people.
They're gold.
I remember running factories. If my secretary wanted to quit, have a good life. But if my sewing machine operator wanted to quit, I would kiss her rear end because she makes money for me. We lost that focus. We need to start We are paying in California $25 an hour. We are paying 40 cents a minute. When you look at the entire picture, there are three sections. One is product development cost. Whatever it is that can be automated to reduce it as much as possible. Second is the material, the fabric. That's a commodity. That's almost the same price, doesn't matter where I use it. How I use it, I can make better markers. I can do better engineering. Therefore, I have a little chance to make a little more money in there. But when it comes to labor, my labor in India is 1.5 cents a minute. Over here is 40 cents a minute. In Sri Lanka is 1.5 cents a minute. In China is 7 cents a minute. Minutes are going to remain the same. It's not going to change. Question now is, am I going to say, I'm getting it so cheap from there, but I forgot that what are all the ingredients to go with that? I have to buy X number of units, I have to pay duty, I have to pay freight, I have to send quality control people. I have to make sure that they are compliant so nobody from the NGO is going to come and say anything to me. Is it worth it?
To make it in America?
No. Is it worth it to import?
I think there's a time and place for every garment.
I agree.
I think that in this story that you're saying, before they went overseas and got to $19, they had proven their concept and sales were there was a demand. I don't think you should be overseas before you know your demand. You shouldn't be bringing in 1,000 units if the demand isn't there. You need to. It's like riding a bike. You want to start with training. You want to understand. So those beginning styles, yes, you weren't making the same margin, but that it was still profitable, and you were able to do your marketing, to prove your concept, to get your sales, and to get your following. So now when you bring over at $19, 20,000 units, there's a home for it.
I agree.
And so yes, I think overseas manufacturing, we're never going to be able to compete with labor prices. Never.
It's a given. Question now is, what category of products do we want to make? And I've always said that when it comes to basic products, which are free from obsolete fashion or season, or they are shielded from that. They sell 12 months a year, every year, and so on. Khaki chinos at Walmart, one of our clients is making for the last 14 years. Okay, same product, everything same. It sells every year. Will I make that here? Hell no. I'll make it wherever I can in the best possible factories globally. My running shoes, my products which are really 12 months a year, I can sell. When it comes to fashion, I won't be able to. But then what do we do about that? I think made a post. I made a post on a men's shirt, and I did a little study on that. We were selling at vendor level the same shirt at, let's say, $10. Whatever profit we were making, everybody was making around 30-35% gross profit. And then as the time went by, 20 years later, we were selling the same shirt for $6. Everything had gone up, the material, the labor, and so on, and we're still making our profit. So why did that happen? It's like what we always say, we are reactive. We're not proactive. Have you heard of Toyota manufacturing systems?
Toyota? Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a mechanical engineer, and I benchmark automotive industry as my life. And I learned so much from them. When everybody knew what the manufacturing hours to put an automobile was, including all the operations, Toyota started engineering the process and they reduced it by 35% time. Everybody was up in the arms. How can they do that? They had to come and see it. They were showing the production. Why did they come to America? Because they could hurry up, make it, but they had to wait for the product to arrive here, and things would change as far as the colors are hot and this then. So they started manufacturing in the United States. Today, Toyota Motor Car Company is the largest automobile company in the United States of America. Shame on General Motors and shame on Fords of this world. Why? Because they were thinking out of the box. Remember the suit manufacturing? This used to be Philadelphia area was the most famous area for men's suits places, best tailors, and everybody was there. We would make the suit with the hand finishing of the products, put this kind of a chest piece, this kind of a shoulder pad, and so on. A jacket would take 145 standard allowed minutes. So what do? Let's go to Poland. Let's go to Czechoslovakia. Let's go to China. Let's go to Pakistan to get the suits made for $40 and $60 and so on. Fabric is still the same. Then comes an engineer out of Montreal. May God rest his soul. One of my heroes, Alvin Segal from Peerless Clothing.
Yeah.
He redesigned the garment to make a turnover jacket in 54 minutes. And all of a sudden, he was the largest suit manufacturer in the entire world. Domestically. He still is one of the largest. Okay, he's passed away, but the company is. My point is, we have to understand the way we are holding the ear like this. There sometimes is a way to do it like that. Sometimes you have to use technology to be able to do that. Why are we so against? We are so against change. This is the reason why I always say change is constant, growth is optional. There's no brand in the United States that was not made by Alvin Segal in Peerless Clothing. So you can check me out on this one, okay? My point is, we can innovate. Why is it Los Angeles Apparel growing like crazy? 3 shifts, 5 cutters,
amazing,
6 spreaders, cutting 250,000 units a day.
Wow.
Is calling me and say, I need to increase my capacity. Now, are you kidding me? No. Yes, it can be made. And he makes shoes, he makes purses, he makes bags, he makes hats, he makes swimwear. There's no category that he doesn't make. My point is everything can be done everywhere. It's just a mindset. And we need to have that mindset. And I'm not saying this to discourage people who are my friends and customers globally. But guys, all of you have to look at maybe the categories which can be made by your importer. Maybe you need to stay away from those and put whatever your specialty is. Maybe it's the embroideries, maybe it's the fabric, maybe it's the styling, maybe it is the handwork that nobody else can do that. But whatever it is, okay, think of it and make that product and become a merchant rather than wait for somebody to tell you, what is it that I want you to make for me to import? No, this is my line because you didn't have the chance to design. I have the design capability. All you vendors globally should become design houses with your own product lines. So stop this nonsense about relying on your buyers. And all you buyers, stop bullshitting with your design rooms. They don't know shit. They are copying one from other, and that's what's taking you down. Work with your factories. Innovations happens in factories. Design development happens in factories. Work with the factories. Work with your people. My God.
I always say.
They are the ones who know what's going on.
I always say this relationship is like a marriage. It can be, I love my marriage. It can be so beautiful. It can be so rich. You can make so much money together. But you have to really talk nicely to the people behind there. Love your sewers. Bring somebody cookies. Like, really work with these people. People think that, I think one of the main things that has been the biggest problem of overseas manufacturing is people just think like, snap my fingers, get a sweater in the mail. In overseas, you can do that. You can take a beautiful Alice and Olivia sweater. You can send it to China. You can tell them to make you a $25 version, and they can do that. But that's not a brand. Being a designer, being creative, and doing your own thing, that is so important. And you're going to do that in collaboration with the best manufacturer. And so I don't say it because I want people to be nicer to us or any of those things, but I say it to be nice to the community, to help the community, to be willing to pay. I have a wonderful client. He's got the best business model. I mean, it's all dead stock fabric. He's buying it for pennies, and he is killing it. He's making 5 of something. We're taking tiny little bolts, but it's just such a cool concept. They're numbered. It's such a great concept. And we came to him and said, we need $3 more. Like, your prices are from 2022. Minimum wage has gone. And he said, no problem. Whatever you guys need, because he's making probably $50 a piece off of what we're giving him. And he's willing to pay that. There just needs to be a partnership. And if there's a partnership, really magic can really happen. And I think we can do a lot right here in LA.
The reason I decided that we should get you very quickly here, because I heard you in one of the seminars where you were speaking, and I loved one thing that let me take care of what we call the oxygen room, where things happen, development, fit, product development, and so on. Yes, you're the designer, or sometimes the designer is the owner. They've got so much vested in by their vision. Concentrate on increasing your business, sell your product, work on that area, and we'll take care of the other part. But both parts are extremely important, and we need to create these kind of partnerships for people to understand that, hey, I can rely on them to do their part, and I can do what I'm good at. And once we all look at how we utilize the best time, somebody told me a story it's a little personal, but he said there was $3 worth of merchandise extra on my cart, and the person charged it. And I was looking at that, and I said, oh, I didn't buy this, but there was bubble gums. And I found out my daughter had just put them in the cart without me knowing it, but she knew that she's not allowed to have that. Now, I could have done 2 things. Let her have it, which was not right, or try to return it and try to get my money back. Neither of them were good options for me, because one would have taken my time. It wasn't worth the $3. So I gave it to the girl, the cashier, and say, give it to somebody or donate it to something, and I'm out. My generation would have spent 3 hours or try to get $3 back. But then everybody has to now look at, what am I good at? I have a limited number of times, number of hours. I should do what I'm best at and pass it on. That's where the networking and that's where the collaborative work is. Design rooms is where things happen. It's not happening on the boards what the garment is going to look like. A 15-year-old granddaughter of mine does amazing drawings. Today we have all these technologies, and schools are teaching in the crafts classes. How can I fit the garment? Pattern room. How can I get the garment out? Production people. Those are the areas that we need to shine on and get better on. And on that, I think you're doing a wonderful job. I've seen you grow in the last 10 years. So many people I come across who have now become multi-million-dollar brands, and they started with you. I think that must be a really gratifying.
I love it.
Yeah, warm.
You know, as I build a business, it's not a baby anymore. I'm not a baby anymore. I think I am, but I'm not. I'm still a baby. I really admire the Tuka talk I listened to, where you talk about a family business. And in that moment of listening to you, I decided I'm never going to sell my company. I'll give it to my kids. I'll give it to employees. Who knows what'll happen to it? But a family business. And what's so fun for me right now is watching people that have been with me for 10 years get married and have their own kids and build their own lives and grow up with us, right? And, you know, I think that a lot of our magic happens and we can really help our customers is because we're a family. And I think I learned a lot of that from you. So I thank you.
To family.
To family.
And that's the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this discussion presented by Tukatalks. If you found something in this conversation insightful, we would love for you to click the share button and send this episode to a friend.